Welcome back to another video. This will be within Shape Sculptor. So within my previous video I discussed brush select, box trap, and now we are going to see how we can use the curve select. For the case study I will make use of this Baby Yoda mesh that we see is quite low poly, but it is intended that I wanted to add a mesh that is more low poly to show you the advantage of curve select. So if I'm gonna type in C:information, because I want to find the information regarding this model, we're gonna have the pop-up over here. I'm gonna click the mesh. We're gonna see that the triangle count is quite low, as we can see over here. This is the reason why the mesh looks so edgy. And if you're gonna zoom in, we're gonna see exactly how those points, which are usually called, let's say, vertices in other solutions and other 3D modeling solutions, will be connected using triangles. So this is not a, let's say, a quad mesh, this is a triangle mesh. Okay, for curve selection, if I'm gonna press Shift F1 and I will click on that, we're gonna see that curve select, this will select triangles from polygonal mesh using curves. So even though they are defined by quads or by triangles, we can use them, but usually CATIA imports them as triangles. As you can see, we can also select the curve to delimit the region to select. We can also pick a triangle in the region. But most importantly, we need to define a curve on the mesh in order to use this. Because if I'm just going to click on this and afterwards I will try to click on the mesh, we're going to see that nothing happens. So this is quite, let's say, not intuitive. Now, to make this work, we have the possibility to use a paint curve. So directly within Shape Sculptor, we can make use of the paint curve. I'm going to zoom in over here and I will try to, let's say, select the eye over here. And as we can see, we can define that. My mouse has a problem and usually it double clicks even though I don't intend to do that, but it's no problem since we have the first mesh curve over here. Afterwards, I can start with the second one. I can directly start it over there. And you see that I draw lines, but as soon as I will click on those, the mesh will be actually defined using splines. So we have a degree of tolerance over there, and I have this snapped all the way over there. At the end, I will click OK. And now we have this curve position on the mesh. Therefore, I can do the selection. So I will hold down Control to select both of those mesh curves. And afterwards, if I will go to Curve Select, this pop-up will appear over here. So this will enable us to do a section. By default, this should pop up selected. And with this enabled within orange, if I'm going to click on the inner surface over here, we're going to see how CATIA will do that selection. Now, even though we don't have, let's say, you see some of those small triangles over there, if I will go back over here, we see that those were added on the initial model. So this just selected those. If I will do the same selection, but in this case without the section tool enable, so keep in mind that if you're just gonna click inside, nothing will happen because initially you have to select the boundary and afterwards do that selection. And you see the difference without this sectioning, since some of those triangles will slightly be positioned on the, let's say, inside within the inner curve, those will also be selected. So over here we have additional added geometry. So maybe you don't want that, let's say, to be selected as well if you want to work on the mesh. This is why it's important to keep the section enabled. And as we saw before, let me just re-enable that. Since I press the escape key, we saw that that disappeared. But as soon as you will re-enable the curve select, this should appear. and be positioned within the same location that you previously left it. So we have that. This is how you can do curve select, but let's take a look at some other options. There are multiple ways that you can add a mesh on the curve. So the Dassault system added this function within various workbenches. We have it over here within Shape Sculptor underneath Paint Curve. I'm going to create a separate video just regarding Paint Curve because I want to make a video for each feature. But let's take a look at how we can also define some curves on mesh. I will go to Start, and within Shape, I will jump within the previous workbench, which is entitled Quick Surface Reconstruction. And we're going to see that over here, we're also going to have the possibility to do a curve on mesh. So we see this was mesh curve, and this will be curve on mesh. And if you're going to take a look at the functionality of this, we need to select a support mesh for this. For example, maybe I want to define, let's say, the inner iris of the eye. Therefore, I will do a selection that selected the Baby Yoda STL scan. Now I have the same tolerance and segments that we previously had within the other section, but we also have the possibility to add a maximum segments over here. And we can also see we can analyze the curvature over here, so we can see the deviations. If you want to, we can enable those. So I will put, again, various points. As we can see, this will define a spline, just like before. If you want to close the loop, if you're just going to move the mouse over the initial vertices, you're going to see that that won't close. And over here, this will try to snap into various shapes, as you can see over here. So to have this closed, you can just right click and you can choose the option at the bottom, close curve, and that will automatically close that. Now, if I'm going to click OK, I'm going to jump back within Shape Sculptor. And now for the curve select, if I will select this curve on mesh, as we can see, initially we had mesh curve, which defined two curves, so 1 and 2. But on curve on mesh 3, we see that multiple splines are positioned within the same feature. For example, I can do a selection only for this segment. So even though I will hold down Control and select all of those, they will all be, let's say, grouped over here within the curve on mesh. But the functionality of curve selection will be the same. I can go over here on curve select, and I can, with the section enable, if I will just click once, we're gonna see how CATIA, you saw how that mesh slightly changed because CATIA added some triangles over here in order to enable me to select as close to the spline as it can. So if I will press escape, for example, we're going to see how the geometry over here will change. So we see that it still remained over there. Let me just do an undo and see. Okay, so you saw how that shading on the mesh changed? Because we don't have that, let's say, that amount of triangles over here, but when we do a curve selection like this and we keep the section on, CATIA will add those additional elements. Now you can also select, for example, I can start with the same curve on mesh. If you want to select everything within the curve on mesh, you can just directly click over here, so it's no longer needed to hold down Control to add those. I'm gonna go to curve select, click once on the inside with the section enabled, and now let's say that I want to expand my selection to the second loop. I will just hold down, let's see, if I will hold down Control, this will add over here. And now if I will click once over here, CATIA will do that selection for us. But as we see, the previously selected area was deselected. This is important because if you want to keep that, you need to hold down Shift. That will add to the selection. And as you can see, if I'm going to hold down Shift, this selection will slightly change over here. Now, if I will hold down Shift and click over here once, and click on the inside. This will select the inner section. And now if I want to get also this one, if you need to hold down Control, as you can see, this is a back and forth selection using Control and Shift. This is why, for me, since I use a wide variety of 3D modeling software, it's usually a little bit of getting started with those because they're a little bit different. In some software, you need to hold down Shift, in other Control, but you can see how you can do those selection. So if you want only the outer side or the inner side. So I hope that you find this video useful. I want to create this series where I will go through everything within Shape Sculptor, and after that I will proceed to another workbench for CATIA. So if you enjoy this kind of content, because these are some, let's say there are no videos regarding this on YouTube, or they are not, let's say, well explained and presented, just usually a video with a sound, and it's quite hard to get started with this workbench in CATIA. So I will position a similar video over here on the left. I will add this to the CATIA V5 tips and tricks playlist. And please consider to subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. And I will position a subscribe button over here. So that's it. Thanks for watching.